If you're not enough without winning, you'll never be enough with it. There's something redemptive and life-giving about asking better questions.
So if someone were to come to me and say, hey, can I come on your podcast? I want to sell a book. I don't want to just be a vehicle that people are going to just come and sell their books.
It's not an advertising platform. Yeah.
So we sometimes have something called time blindness. For me, I have this weird thing. It's like I can bend time.
I think I've probably more got a problem with running away from the negative things that need processed. I'm interested in ideas, in wisdom, and what it means to live well and deliberately right now. My name is Kenny Primrose. I'm delighted to be with you, Ashleigh King.
Hi, and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will bring you a wealth of interesting people with fascinating ideas across the tech industries, the creative industries, and also uplifting stories of courage and hope. We all go through prickly situations in life. I believe that through courage, creativity, and curiosity, you can find inspiration to nurture your zest. That thing that gets you up and out of bed every morning, the thing that lifts you up and lights up your day. So join me in the studio and let's see who we have in the hot seat today. Hello and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. Today I am delighted to be joined by a fellow podcaster and a new colleague and friend, Kenny Primrose, or Kenny, from the Examine Life podcast. And I'm so happy to have you here, Kenny. We've only recently met and I can't believe we haven't known each other before because we're very aligned in lots of ways. And I just love that you love chatting like me.
Absolutely. We met for the first time last month. It seemed like we'd been living in very close locale, but never actually. It was a joy to meet you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And you have your own podcast, the Examine Life podcast with Kenny Primrose, or was it Kenny Primrose?
Yeah, no, I did. I changed it. After talking to you, I was the Examine Life. Now it's the Examine Life with Kenny Primrose.
I love it. And you've gone for Kenny the shorter rather than Kenneth.
My dad used to say Kenneth when he was annoyed at me. And so Kenneth sounds like someone's annoyed at me. I do sometimes wonder whether it sounds a bit more professional than Kenny, but people call me Kenny. So, there you go.
And I think it's also, whatever your show is, it evolves with you, and also it has to feel like you. And if you
identify, it was a Kenneth, I'm not quite sold on it. So,
yeah, exactly. So one of the things, when looking a little bit about you online, I mean, you've got a great following on YouTube. You've got some incredible views on your videos and some really interesting content, but you also write a lot. So you comment a lot on different thoughts and feelings about stuff today and, philosophy, different social matters. How would you describe yourself? Because you also have a different professional life as well.
Yes, I'm a teacher. I teach religion and philosophy and character development, like personal development. That's a kind of passion of mine, I suppose. I do that 4 days a week at the moment. And 1 day a week, I get to do slightly more creative things: the podcasting, the writing, bits of speaking, and that kind of thing. I'm interested in ideas, in wisdom, in what it means to live well and deliberately right now. And I suppose the things that I write about and talk about and podcast about are all around this idea of, in so many ways, we're living at a time that is, there's colossal change in how we're living and the cultural influences, whether it's screens or politics or, just the air we're breathing. I think in lots of ways it's not good for us, and it takes a bit of stepping back to notice the water we're swimming in. And I guess stopping to talk about it with people who are kind of experts who have insight is one way I've found to address that. Writing about it, I think kind of clear writing leads to clear thinking. And so I write primarily because I want to make sense of things. And then, if I publish it or if I send it out in Substack or whatever, I'm wondering whether it resonates with others, whether it's helpful to others. So I suppose, what am I saying? There's a twin desire. I'm a communicator. I like to communicate. It's something I'm enthusiastic about and would like to get better at. And I'm also personally really interested in what the good life is.
Yeah. And so would you say that you are a pursuer of excellence? Is that kind of a
I've never been accused of that. Say a bit more.
Well, what I mean by that is, I guess when you start podcasting, lots of people do it for different reasons. As a podcast producer, working with lots of clients and helping them bring their stories to life, it's really interesting to me the different motives for starting a podcast. And some people will do it because they want to grow their profile. Others will do it because they want to raise awareness of a particular mission or purpose. It sounds to me like you are very much in the wanting to explore ideas and examine different viewpoints. And I mean, you called the examined life. So, I mean, what does that, the examined life, mean to you? So I guess my question there is, are you coming at it from an angle of, I'm pursuing excellence, I'm pursuing what can I take from all these different people to help me live the best life I can live? Or is it more of a, I'm going to examine different viewpoints to help me evolve my thinking?
Okay, yeah, what's behind it? Well, I mean, there's an origin story, and it goes a bit like this. This started not as a podcast, but about 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago last year. And Krista Tippett, the podcaster from On Being, and writer and the general public figure of wisdom, she had a nice line. She said, "There's something redemptive and life-giving about asking better questions." You definitely find this to be true. I love a good question. The power of a good question is something that I don't think I'll ever tire of. And I wondered if I wrote to some people I found like compelling or interesting, who had something to say, and I asked them, what question do they think we should be asking ourselves? Like, can you kind of distill your wisdom into a question that can be applied and help us live better lives in some way, or think clearer thoughts or whatever? And I didn't necessarily agree with everything that the people I wrote to said, but what was astonishing was who wrote back. So obviously you get plenty. I've got a pile actually from people like David Attenborough. He did a handwritten letter, and Gordon Brown, and some amazing people who said no, but said no really politely. And then quite a few of them who said yes. And so it began. I ended up having a 4-day week at that point. I was living in Scotland. And during the day off, I'd sometimes go to the Edinburgh Festival to meet someone, or down to London to meet someone, up to Skye, and I was just transcribing them and not doing very well. So when you said, "Am I a pursuer of excellence?" I think my wife would laugh. I think various people who know me would laugh. There's very little that's kind of perfectionistic or excellent about what I do. I'm a slow learner. It's been iterative. It's been an iterative process, this podcast business. All this to say, sorry, I wrote to them, and I don't know why they wrote back. Maybe it's just that I had a clear question. What question do they think we should be asking ourselves? And I had some really compelling responses. They led to really interesting interviews. And I have a friend, Nate, who very kindly built me a website, examined-life.com. I'd populate them on there, try and get some discussion going. And I did that for a number of years, kind of on and off. Then there was a hiatus. We moved to Newcastle, 6 years ago, thereabouts. Life was intense in lots of ways. And a number of years ago, it felt like the barrier to entry for podcasting was low enough. And I had some space. Life felt a little bit more spacious, and I took a day off a week, and I started doing the project as a podcast. And once again, although there was, like not everyone I wrote to said yes, a good number said yes. And I've done 3 shortish series, and they've been like a joy in lots of ways. They've intimidated me. I've learned a lot in the process. Yeah, I feel like I've probably strayed for your original question, which was, why do I do it? Was that like?
Yeah, no, I don't think you've strayed too far. I mean, I want to comment briefly on the fact that you reached out to Gordon Brown and David Attenborough, and how courageous to,
or foolish and cheeky, and there was a bit of audacity, but what was the Newcastle phrase? Shy bairns getting out.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, I think he who dares, and they're just people at the end of the day. They're busy, interesting people, but they're just people.
Well, that gives me inspiration because my dream guest is Steph McGovern, who I think is a really incredible spokesperson from Middlesbrough, from Teesside, who has Steph's Pack Lunch on the telly and just speaks so well on business. And that's one of my dream guests. But I don't know if that I would ever have the confidence to approach them. So it's so great to hear just that kind of, why not just do it?
I mean, I'd love to encourage you, actually, because why would you not?
I've actually met her twice and she's fantastic. It's more, I think in my head, it's like, how would I afford to pay? I always worry about like paying for talent and stuff like that.
I know what you mean. I don't pay, right? I don't have any money to pay for podcasty guests.
And the funny thing about podcasting, right, is normally you don't pay. Isn't that the crack?
So, I don't know.
Yeah. So
is that how's it work in the industry? It's normally you don't.
So this is the thing. So I personally have never paid for a guest, and I've personally never been paid for my show. Occasionally, someone will say, "I'd like to give you a donation. I really enjoyed my experience. Can I help support the channel?" Or it might be, "I would like to co-create something with you. So can we do this episode in a very strategic way so that it can help me?" Of course I've been paid to produce them and to create them. However, I think when you have people who have huge followings and who are, celebrities,
true. And they can charge 10 grand for an after dinner speaker as an after dinner speaker. I do. It's of course in my mind. Like, why would you give me your time for free?
But what's really funny though is sometimes if you were say to reach out to an agent, they'll say no. But then if you ask the person directly, if you sent them a letter or if you sent them a message, they will then.
I mean, does it catch their interest? Is probably part of it. And I think maybe there's something in this idea of. I mean, I kind of think, I kind of think the question of what questions you would be asking yourself is an interesting one. And I think it's just caught the attention of some people, maybe. Because they must ignore a lot of mail, right?
Oh, yeah. And that is a really unique one because everyone will have such a different perspective. I mean, I'm still processing that question for myself. What question do you think we should be asking ourselves right now? I mean, there's so much going on in the world. The question on my mind is how can we stop the division and how can we come back together? How do we live as different cultures and be connected in this world that is daily becoming more and more polarized? And at the same time, how do we uplift voices but also not have silos? So, it's such a big topic.
I think it's a huge thing. Someone actually, it was pre-podcast, there was an interview with a theologian called Tom Greggs, and his question, he was great. And his question was, how do I live generously with my neighbor? And he explored it beautifully, but just this is the question. What does it mean to live generously today and not live in a silo and not live in an echo chamber? And what are the factors that make that really hard? There's a lot to unpack in that.
And there are, some fantastic podcasters out there, like, for instance, Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom podcast, has had some very provocative conversations recently where he's had a sex worker on one side, and then I forget, it was like a women's rights activist or something like that. But it was a really interesting debate that I got to view, and how cool is that just to watch, to see some of the stuff going on in the world that you can watch at just a click of your fingers. But it's also interesting how if you name drop someone or name check someone or talk about a particular person, you can platform them. And you may or may not agree with their other views, but then all of a sudden you're platforming someone. And then there's this whole cancel culture stuff. I find it all so confusing. And I feel like, can we just be human and have conversations and just explore stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think content is so often weaponized. And so, there's some people I really wouldn't want to give a platform to, I think. But at the same time, I think we, living in a democracy, it's good to understand different perspectives. The writer and podcaster Liz Oldfield is good at this. Her podcast from Theos Think Tank, The Sacred, it's all based on speaking to people from across different divides about what the values are that they hold sacred. And she will often profoundly disagree with people she's speaking to. But I guess the point is we share the same political space, physical space, breathe the same air. You know, the way forward has got to be a dialogue in some way. I've got to be understanding. Right?
Yeah. I also think that sometimes the right people will say yes. You know, it's piquing their interest.
I love to think that there's more going on than just kind of, I love to think, as you say, that there's some kind of charm to it. The right people feel moved by it.
I think it's interesting as well. So you're a podcaster too. So something that I get a lot of people saying, hey, can I be on your show? So one of the things with Nurture Your Zest is we have 5 core values. So it's curiosity, courage, creativity, inspiration, and zest. And those all mean something specific to me. So if someone were to come to me and say, hey, can I come on your podcast? I want to like sell a book. And, you know, it's about cryptocurrency. I'm not anti-cryptocurrency. I'm actually really interested in it. But I don't want to just be a vehicle that people are going to just come and sell their books.
It's not an advertising platform.
Well, it is. Anyone that I give a space, I'm kind of lifting up, aren't I? But what I'm saying there is I want to talk about financial inclusion, especially digitally now. You know, I want to talk about blockchain and can it help with rhino poaching in Africa? And like, can we spot data trends? And I don't want to necessarily talk about how to get rich faster.
So you've got quite a strong moral bent to...
I would say there's quite a strong... And this is why with my show, there are lots of people I will say, I'm sorry, I think you've got a great story. I think it's really valuable, but it's not going to work for us. So having those values helps me make decisions regularly, and I'll say it's a good fit or not. But also I think there's something about how people reach out to you. So if for anyone listening, you want to go on a podcast, don't just go, hey, I want to come on your show. Well, why? What is the question you want to answer? What are you bringing to the audience? And I wonder for yourself, you know, we've just talked about that from the flip side about being hosts, you know, and like going out and outreach to get guests on our show. But if you were guesting on someone else's show, what kind of, or someone wanted to guest on your show, what kind of questions would you want them to ask you? Do you say no?
To people who say, can I be on your show? Yeah. I don't think I've said yes. And it's not because there's not interesting people writing to me. There are, and I might. There's one person who I might well. I think one is I just feel busy. Like I'm just scheduled and there's time to do what I kind of want to do with the podcast and writing, just about. I mean, not even that. And then if I add in other people, the other is a bit like you. If it's someone who wants to promote a book or it's all about them, I think really the people I'm interested in either their experiences or their ideas, and that doesn't always come across when someone sends you an email and says, you know, I'd love to be in your podcast. I've written this book. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm not a hard no at all. I just don't really have the capacity. But yeah, I mean, maybe.
I think part of it as well is there's also a question about cost, right? So although you might not pay to go on someone's show or pay someone to appear, it's also the sense of when you are a independent, self-funded podcaster, which although I run at my own studio, time spent on my own show takes me away from client work. So it's really expensive to produce your own content. So it's kind of like with every episode you do, you've got to think, well, where is the return on investment, and is it a match? And do I really want to spend my time and energy in editing this or writing show notes or doing a transcript or just involved in that process?
I think that's right. I think we were talking prior about side projects, and I think if this is, it in a sense, it's a side project, you're pursuing your passion, then it makes sense to continue pursuing that passion, or you know, it has to be worth your while financially, I suppose, and has to have integrity with your show. So yeah, there's a few boxes to tick. I like the values, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. They're I guess for anyone who doesn't know, when I started Nurture Your Zest, I was sitting at a desk. I was 25. I was looking around. I was working late, and everyone else had gone home. Looking at my phone, looking at Instagram, thinking, how come everyone else has it all figured out? What am I missing? You know, why am I being left behind in life? And I just felt so stuck. And then I started leaning into my strengths. And some of those strengths are those words, actually. And I started to follow those things. So curiosity, courage, and creativity. And then that really did help me find inspiration to nurture my zest. So that's why that kind of developed. When I started podcasting, it was really just an exploratory piece. And I think it's funny how much you kind of learn as you go and learn about yourself and learn about other people and other cultures and life experiences and perspectives that are so different to yours.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, like, I'm an experimenter as well, right? That's how I got into it. It's just following curiosity, experimenting. And I think that's how you often develop a sense of purpose. It's just by being a scientist, like trying different things out and finding something that actually there's a groove here I can get into. And yeah, as you say, it's a real joy to have like conversations that open things up.
Yeah. Have you ever felt burnt out doing it? Like
doing the podcasting
yeah.
thing? Yeah, towards the end of the season, if I record, so what tends to happen is I will record quite a few. I will start releasing a season with a few more to record, and then because I've always got like so many other things going on, trying to edit them, promote them, and I'm really not very good at that. I find myself just feeling a little bit exhausted and not doing, you can do a job 80% the way, but that last 10% or whatever that you do, that's the stuff that takes real focus and concentration. And that's what makes a show excellent, I think, is the last 10%. And that's the stuff that falls off as I get more kind of weary, I think.
I think as well, some of that's not always the place that you're interested in, right? So if you love the chatting and you love the interviewing, you love the learning, and that's your place to explore and experiment with different ideas and concepts. But then you've got to do all this stuff like, upload it to YouTube and upload it to Spotify and optimize your keywords. And
the admin.
For some people, that just is not going to light them up. And so getting to that point can be really tricky because it's just not the joy. I feel the same about editing. I can edit and I will edit, but my gift is really holding space for people. So I love to ask someone else to edit for me, and then I know that I can do a really good job with optimizing that episode, So I think it is about leaning into our gifts. And the thing is, when you are an indie creator, it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of work for anyone anyway.
You're one man show, right?
Yeah.
You're producer, editor.
Yeah.
Promoter.
Exactly. Well, you've got a really interesting add-on that I haven't explored yet, which I'm actually learning about, and I'd love to learn about now and for anyone listening or watching. So Substack. So that is a really cool way that a lot of podcasters can find niche audiences or amplify their message or have space for like those behind the scenes special connection points. How have you found Substack?
So I love it actually as a platform. It's different from other social media. I don't know. There's a note section which feels a bit social media-y, but it is a more spacious part of the internet where you've got so many good writers. I mean, that's the thing. You're competing with tens of thousands of people, and so many of them are just kind of phenomenal writing. There's a lot of AI slop there as well, I think, and it's a place that you can follow people you're interested in. You get subcultures of all kinds, and it tends to favor long form good writing. I have used over the last year or two for sometimes writing long form essays, and also keeping people abreast of what's coming out. And also, it's actually a place that people can support financially the podcast. So any support I get from Substack, from paid subscribers, is financing the podcast. And that's the only lever right now that I have for kind of getting it to wash its face in any way.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, I've never monetized my podcast. I've had incredible opportunities as a result of it. I've gone on stages, I've been paid to train or do all kinds of things. I've been sent handbags or whiskey or all sorts of things. But I'm curious about the monetization point. So even if it's maybe £3 as a Substack subscriber or something like that, are you using Substack as a vehicle? You've got your website, but then are you also using it as like a newsletter? So you would write an essay and then it goes out to your audience, or?
I suppose it's somewhat how the conversations I've had have resonated with me. And often the conversations want to speak to each other, and I can do that work in writing. Maybe I'll write a New Year's newsletter and I'll bring up a bunch of interviews that I found helpful when I think about, looking down the barrel of 2026. People can subscribe. They can offer to pay a bit each month, and all of that goes to, I suppose, the software that I use, which is it's not big money there. Some people I think do make good money on Substack. I'm not one of them.
Yet.
Yet. Who knows? But I do appreciate it as a space for sharing and a space that people can support creative work. So there's people on there that I'd support financially, because I think the work they do is good, and I'd like to encourage them in it. It's a way of encouraging people as much as anything, right? Yeah.
Do you find, have you always been creative? Is creativity quite a strong value for you?
Yeah. In a sense, I suppose I'm not very good at drawing. In fact, I'm very bad at drawing and painting. And, I always associated that growing up with being creative. And I thought, I'm not very creative. I'm rubbish at drawing. My voice is not very good either. I love music, but I can't make pretty music, I'd say. So I've always been totally drawn to the arts, drawn to music, drawn to art, drawn to poetry and writing, things like that. But it's not something I ever thought that this is one of my gifts. However, I've come around to the idea that I think I am creative. I love to create. I feel much more alive. It's a life-giving thing for me. And just because I'm not a good draftsman, I'm not good at drawing and painting, I've found other ways where I can come up with original ideas that have value or new ways of thinking about things. So has it always been a value for me? I think it has, but I haven't owned it until recently.
That's so cool. What you just said there, I haven't owned that until recently. So what has created a shift for you in how you view creativity or how you view yourself?
Okay, it's a good question. Because I don't know if I have the answer to it. There has been a shift. I think partly making the podcast, having it's got a tremendous sense of agency. And then writing, and when your work gets published, you're like, oh, well, somebody else thinks this is worth publishing. So I suppose there has been a bit of external validation, but maybe the deeper work has been within. So it's been a bit less self-doubt, a bit more thinking, I can put something out into the world. If people like it, great. If they don't, that's fine. And I'm not injured from that, nor do I become inflated if it goes well. If I can hold myself in that space that is not contingent on external validation, that's a really convoluted answer to your question.
It's a really good one, actually. What you've touched on there is important about, I think, for anyone who's starting out in their creator journey, it's about also why you're doing it, right? Ego can only take you so far, and also ego is dangerous. When you start getting the validation and the likes start rolling in and the comments and the views, it's cool, right? And then so many podcasters quit and they stop releasing and they don't put content out there because it's a lot of work, as we just discussed.
I mean, it's a potent thing to be listened to, and if you do get loads of likes, and I haven't enjoyed like years of loads of followers or anything like that, so I haven't had that kind of ego inflation. But I am very aware of John Candy in Cool Runnings, Disney Wisdom, where who's the head of the bobsleigh team? I can't remember. He says, "Why did you cheat, coach?" And John Candy says something about so he cheated to win an Olympic gold medal, put weights in the bottom of his sled. And he said, if you're not enough without winning, you'll never be enough with it. And I often think of that line and think you've got to be okay without the external validation, because if you're not okay without it, then even when you get it, you're not going to be okay. There's going to be this eternal appetite for more. And so feeling okay, just putting something that I want to put out into the world, creating content that I think and I hope has value for others as well as for me. Yeah, that has to be enough. And I do, want more people to listen to it. I would love more followers, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it, and I'm not going to make my happiness depend on it.
Absolutely. You spoke about gifts before. It's a word I often use, and actually not everyone uses that word. Giftings, something that we have innately. What would you say your gifts are? Because it appears to me, although you're not sure about certain creative skills that you might have, like drawing or things like that, you are drawing on experiences. You are a storyteller, which is a gift in itself.
Yeah, I love stories. I think we need stories. I think we're hardwired for them. And I love telling stories. Yeah. I'd never thought of storytelling as a gift, but I'm absolutely drawn to stories and narratives. I don't know. What are my gifts? I would say that, I didn't grow up as a gifted and talented child, absolutely not. But the one thing my mum used to say was that I was just very good with people. As in I could speak to people. And maybe this is the secret behind the podcast, that in some sense I can write to someone like Gordon Brown, or I didn't speak to him in the end, but I'm okay speaking to those people. I don't feel too cowed. I can maybe to some extent put them at ease. I say this in full awareness that I have had so many social car crashes. I've been awkward with people many, many times. This is not a gift that, I don't have like gallons of charisma and, compel people to speak to me at all. I'm not that person, but I think there's something there socially. I don't know if curiosity is a gift. I'm curious. Socially, I like storytelling. I don't know. I guess I like thinking aloud, and that's maybe a trait rather than a gift. But
yeah. Well, I'm an external processor too, so I'm always chatting through ideas, and it's a lot of fun. And then sometimes I remember that what I say has weight, and if I say I'm going to do something, I might just be exploring that idea, but I'm just externally processing it. So then I have to remember that our words have responsibility, tied to them. So it's an interesting one. Have you ever read the book Quiet?
Susan Cain.
Yeah.
No, my wife's got it. She's an introvert. I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
She needed to read it.
Yeah.
And she loved it. I really like Susan Cain.
Yeah.
Her book Bittersweet, I thought was stunning.
Well, I haven't read Bittersweet. I'll have to read that. But Quiet shifted my mindset a lot, because I've always loved being an extrovert and loved that about myself. But I always felt the need to want to include people and bring them into the conversation. But sometimes that's not the right thing for everyone. And also, especially in like leading a team or in the workplace, or, sometimes people need time to think about their thoughts or to contribute in other ways. And I think there's this danger sometimes that we do things the way we've always known or the way that we like, but it also takes away other people's preferences or ways of working. So yeah, I learned a lot from that book about a different perspective, and it just showed me it was a pretty harsh book, actually. It was like a mirror of all the things.
The world is made for extroverts, right?
Yeah, and exactly. And
to a horrible degree.
Yeah, and it kind of gave my head a bit of a wobble, as in like, wow, there's this huge different perspective that's so different to yours. It was quite a paradigm shift, actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Those books are worth their weight in gold. So.
Yeah. So you've lived in Scotland, and you're living in the northeast of England now. But your accent is not from the northeast of England. So where else have you lived in the world? Anything else?
Too many places, actually. Too many places. I'll work backwards. So I did have, prior to this, we were 5 years in a beautiful seaside town called Stonehaven in the northeast of Scotland. I was teaching in an independent school up there. Prior to that, Dorset. And then we yo-yoed. We were up in Glasgow before that. Before that, we were in Guernsey. Before that, London. And prior to that, I had a year in China, Edinburgh, and Aberdeen. I think there was a few more places as well. I realized, and I don't know if this is, so I don't have an ADHD diagnosis, but I do, like lots of people, really resonate with the symptoms, and my wife is pretty convinced I have it. And I think part of this kind of looking for stimulation, moving house, looking for, moving is horrendous, but also stimulating, busy, and engages you. And we've stayed here now for 6, almost 7 years. And I think part of that has been like, I'm going to take my problems with me wherever I go. I cannot outrun them. And realizing that I actually just have to stay put for a bit, for the sake of my children as well. But I have to stay put and kind of, I suppose, deal with my flightiness. This happens every November. I start looking all over the world for jobs, in Hong Kong and Chile, and I think so as the nights draw in and it gets cold, I start daydreaming about moving, and I've recently managed to sit on that a bit and not apply for jobs all over the world and become a little bit more present, less flighty.
That's so fascinating. So when did you notice there was a pattern or trend that it was a regular thing every November?
I think my wife, Megan, I think she noticed it. I think she pointed it out. And then I started to notice it. It was kind of November time, and I start just forwarding like job adverts for exotic looking places. And I love to travel, and I love the idea of exotic jobs and things like that. But I'm also aware that is probably just not what my soul needs. Yeah.
It's funny with ADHD because you mentioned you don't have a formal diagnosis, and
I got kind of like, I saw a therapist for a kind of psychologist who did go through it and said, you're on this, but I never, I'm on the waiting list. I get a text once a year from the NHS for the last like 3 or 4 years. It's like the Kafka-esque system. I'm not sure they'll ever get around to me, but.
Well, yeah, it's a journey, and for a lot of people, it's a very long waiting list. And I guess my question is, what would it do for you to have that label?
I don't know if it would do much, actually. I tried Zagatin or some pill once, and I was hyper productive, but I think I was. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't have been if I don't have ADHD, right? So I don't think it proves anything. What would it do for me if I had the label? I don't know if it would do much, because I feel quite well regulated now. I sleep well and I exercise a lot, and there's my natural ways of regulating. And I get sent out for runs or whatever, and that's what I kind of need to do. So yeah, would it help? I don't think it would. I am aware that I tolerate boredom really badly. I'm not good with it, and I might. So my kind of bro understanding of it is that if you've got ADHD, you've probably got less dopamine. And this is why you get antsy, irritable, looking for stimulation. In school, you probably flick someone's ear to, that kind of thing. I feel that. And I can deal with it. I can deal with that by exercising, by getting in, a cold tub, by sleeping well, and that's fine. It's maybe a personality trait rather than a.
The thing I find interesting, so when I got diagnosed with ADHD at 32, everything I thought was a personality trait was actually a symptom of ADHD. And I found that really hard. So I always thought I was just, someone who tends to be late more often than others. That's a very common ADHD trait, because the way we see time is different, and for us, time is more fluid. So we sometimes have something called time blindness, where we think we can do.
Do you have that? Do you feel time blind?
So many things, so quickly. for me, I have this weird thing. It's like I can bend time, which sounds crazy, but it's more about, just the way I interact with time is I can do incredible work in 1 hour, hyper focused. I can do like 3 weeks of work in if I'm on a good day, I can do so much, and then on another day, I just can't do
and
those
certain
same
tasks,
things.
they are just repellent,
like
spreadsheets.
forms.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Interesting in the time thing. I was reflecting this the other day. I used to more than I do, but just like if the train, say I've got to get to Newcastle Station, the train is at 7 o'clock, I'll leave it till 10 to 7, then I'll peg it there and it'll be touch and go whether I make it. Most of the time I do, I'm like, yes. What a rush. And I wonder if I do it for the kind of dopamine hit of, why else do I leave it until it's like, hey, I mean, it drives my family up the wall.
It's an adrenaline rush. I get the same, and I treat trains the same. And I've been on programs. So I did a master's in business administration, MBA at Newcastle University Business School. And on that course, we went to London, and it was an incredible week that we were down there. And oh my gosh, I think the train was 7:28. We were meant to meet at 7, and I literally boarded the train as it was 7:27, and the train was pulling away. But it stopped my behavior immediately because my colleagues were so upset with me. And they were so international as well. I had such a cool cohort. I had people from Peru, from China, from Nigeria, from Uganda, and Lebanon. Just such a wild mix of different cultures. But they were all collectively cross about the way I had been late.
Reshape the way you do trains.
Yeah, absolutely. Because to me, I was like, "What's your problem? Like, I'm here. The train's here. I'm here. I'm leaving with you." But it was the upset it caused someone else.
I had the same experience. Yeah.
And it's never intentional. It's just that in my head, I think,
if I'm here, I'm here. No one's broken. Nothing's broken.
Exactly. But actually, it did have an impact on other people. I think ADHD and the diagnosis journey is quite an interesting one. It's helped me getting diagnosed. It's helped in my marriage to help my husband have like a vocabulary and an understanding and stuff.
Yeah, in terms of your partner and your family, that has been really helpful, I think. And also, like, I think you ride a bit more of a wave of kind of forgiveness and understanding. This is the way you're wired. You're not deliberately ignoring things that you shouldn't be ignoring. And
but I also think it's also important to acknowledge it's a journey, and and there are some things about that which are really truly gifts. So things like being able to hyper focus can be really valuable.
Connecting disparate ideas. I feel like, yes, about gifts, I feel like that's something I can do.
Almost like cross-pollinating different thoughts, or pattern recognition is another cool one.
Is that like the things that don't look related to other people? I sometimes see a relationship, and not always correctly, but
So as someone who is curious, creative, exploring theology and seeking meaning, do you ever struggle with your mental health? Do you ever find there's darkness as well as stuff that's light?
Yeah, I think I'm quite fortunate in that. Like, I do, of course, but I wouldn't say I struggle with my mental health. I think I've got a baseline level of optimism and happiness that. This week actually getting out of bed was hard, but generally I'm all right. I feel quite good. I think I probably more got a problem with running away from the negative things that need processed. And I think that's where the work needs to go. So, for example, the podcast season I'm producing at the moment, it's all on death and dying and grief. And those are areas that I would give a really wide berth to. I remember, for example, I was going to see my beloved uncle was dying in hospital, and I went to see him. And I was he didn't have long, but I was pacing around the car park. I just didn't want to be face to face with this really hard reality. And I look for distractions rather than sitting with the pain. It's a thing for me to not want to sit with sadness and pain, and instead to try and find fun and interesting things to do. So I'm doing the series on grief and pain and dying, and it's become really personal actually recently. And I'm going to try and lean into thinking about things that are really hard rather than living in a slightly Peter Pan-y kind of way. So your original question was, do I struggle with my mental health? I wonder what those who know me best would say. I don't think I do.
Yeah, and that's really interesting as well. So, but perhaps part of that running away is you don't give things that space to feel.
There's so much of life that's so tremendously sad, isn't there? And I think if I was to turn around and face it, I feel like I might be annihilated and like I'd never get out of bed. And so there's a very reasonable defense mechanism in some ways. Like if I allow even the sad things that I know are happening to people I love into my world every morning, then how do I get through the day? At the same time, never allowing it in is a real problem too. So yeah, I've done a bit of crying recently, and that's helpful. And I think creating space where those emotions, which you run away from them, they don't go away. They're lurking, and you just need a trigger, right, or to create some space, which means probably being away from phones and screens and distraction, and then seeing what comes.
And also physically, that exercise you're doing, the sleep you're doing will be helping so much with processing all of those things.
That's good. Yeah.
It sounds like you're on a real journey at the moment of self-discovery, and I'm really excited to see these episodes come out in this series. It sounds very exploratory. It sounds moving, and as someone myself, I'm a very emotional person. I also shy away from the death stuff sometimes, so that's going to be an interesting watch for me, but I'm going to try and check that out.
Yeah. I am looking forward to it. I am a little bit scared about it. I've had bereavements that in some ways haven't been processed, and they will surface. I released an episode at the beginning of the year that was going to be for the season, but it fitted so well at the beginning of the year and with things that had happened recently. And it was a beautiful human being called Victor Strecker talking about the death of his daughter now, how it taught him what was really of value in life and how to find purpose. And I think that's the gold that lies in there, right? And if you never go there, you never have your value system readjusted into something that I think is more true and pointed towards the good. So.
Yeah, we have to go there to grow as well. How does it feel quickly to be on camera like this? Because you normally like Zoom, so you have like two people on the screen. So what is it like being in a studio?
This is infinitely preferable. Like right. I forgot the cameras are there was the time. And you're so good at creating a space.
Thank
you. This is much nicer. The in-your-face Zoom thing, you have to just work a bit harder. There's a dissonance that you're looking at a screen, but you're kind of seeing a person in a room. That Zoom fatigue that you got during COVID, or everyone got during COVID. However, I can still have great chats, and it's all I've got for a lot of the people I speak to who live in different countries.
But it really does help you connect with people globally, which I think is so important. So what is your one word to nurture your zest? So how do you get out of bed in the morning when it's tricky? What is the thing that just lights up your world?
I should have rehearsed that. I'll give you my word for the year, because that might do, right? So I chose a word for the year. I didn't do that last year. Alignment. And what I mean by that is like aligning with the kind of energy. You can have a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset. People talk about these kind of things. I want to align with the kind of energy that brings the highest good to me and those around me. And I think that is probably something that's going to nurture my zest.
I think that's beautiful. I love that. Well, here's to aligning your year in a way that works for you. And I'm excited to see how this year develops for you.
Well, thank you so much, Ashleigh. I'd love to know your word.
So my word for the year is valued. So
nice.
I want to feel valued, but I also want to see that in myself and uplift others. So create structures and spaces where I can gift people a way of seeing themselves and valuing themselves in a different way, and creating content of value. That's really important to me. So not just content for content's sake, but content that ruffles feathers, that challenges the status quo, that gets people curious whether they agree with it or not. I think that's really important.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ashleigh. It's been a real joy.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you so much for listening to Nurture Your Zest today. If you're feeling extra kind, it would mean so much to me if you could share this episode with your friends or family, or anyone who you think might feel inspired by this content. Liking, sharing, or interacting with our content is a great way to support us as content creators, and it helps us to bring interesting stories and more people to you. This podcast is a Flamingo Heights podcast studio production, and I've been your host, Ashleigh King. If you liked today's episode, follow the video on your screen now, or check out the link in your show notes to find similar content.